They won't fear your fists. They won't fear your money. They won't even fear your success. They will fear your mind. A mind that no longer needs validation. A mind that cannot be manipulated by trends, applause, or rejection. A mind so grounded in truth that lies dissolved in its presence. Because the most dangerous person in any room is the one who has mastered their own perception. The one who no longer reacts. Who doesn't need to prove. Who doesn't chase. They terrify people, not because they are cruel, but because they are clear. And clarity? Clarity is power. Not the kind they teach in classrooms, but the kind that breaks you free from the invisible cages you didn't know you were living in. Let me ask you something. Who would you be without their praise? Who would you be if no one ever clapped? If no one ever approved? If there were no mirrors, no followers, no titles, no likes? Would you still believe in your own worth? Would you still move like your life matters? Because that's where the strong mind begins, in the silence of self-certainty. Not the arrogance of ego, but the calm of conviction. It begins in the ruins, the rubble of betrayal, the wreckage of identity collapse, the night you realized no one was coming to save you. That's when the old mind, the borrowed mind, dies, and a new mind begins to form. You build it with questions they taught you never to ask. You sculpt it from the pain they told you to suppress. You sharpen it with truths they buried under comfort. It's not about becoming a genius. It's about becoming aware. Aware of your thoughts. Aware of your reactions. Aware of the shadows you inherited from people too afraid to face their own. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So ask yourself, how much of your life is truly yours? And how much is just inherited programming? Because a strong mind is not just intelligent. It is sovereign. It belongs to you. You don't outsource it to opinion. You don't hand it over in relationships. You don't offer it to fear in moments of uncertainty. You own it fully, relentlessly, silently. You don't build a strong mind by reading books alone. You build it by reading yourself. The way you flinch when someone disapproves, the way you shrink around power, the way you seek external safety to avoid internal war. Those are the places you start. The patterns, the triggers, the wounds, they're not flaws. They're invitations, blueprints, messages from the psyche begging you to evolve. This is where psyphoria begins, the psychological euphoria of finally seeing yourself not as broken, but as becoming. You stop running from your story. You read it, you underline it, you rewrite it. You stop performing the character they gave you and start embodying the one you were born to become. That's the moment people begin to step back, not because you're cruel, but because your presence no longer dances to their delusions. You've become uncomfortable to their illusions. A strong mind does not need chaos to feel alive. It thrives in clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what matters. Clarity about what you will no longer tolerate from others or yourself. This clarity comes with a price. You lose access to the crowd. You lose the comfort of being liked by everyone. You lose a fake peace that came from always saying yes. But what you gain is everything else. The ability to walk away with no bitterness. The ability to stand alone and still feel whole. The ability to observe manipulation and not be moved by it. You don't need revenge. You don't need to show them. You don't need to be loud, because your existence becomes a mirror. And most people can't handle their own reflection. When it's no longer filtered through your people-pleasing, you want to build a mind that terrifies people, Then stop reacting. Observe. Wait. Study. Decide. Because the more reactive you are, the more predictable you become. And predictable minds are easy to control. But the one who watches in silence, the one who chooses response over reaction, the one who pauses before speaking, that one is dangerous. Because that one can't be baited. That one can't be rushed. That one sees the game being played and plays a different one. Not the ego game, not the revenge game, but the legacy game, the long game, the one built on patience, pattern recognition, and purpose. And purpose, let's talk about it. Most people think purpose is a destination, but it's not. Purpose is a lens. It's how you see everything. It's how you suffer. It's how you rise. It's how you interpret every failure, every loss, every challenge. The strong mind is not one that avoids struggle. It's one that alchemizes it. You don't ask, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this shaping me into? And the answer to that is terrifying to those who still live in reaction, because they haven't met their mind. They haven't faced it. They run from it, distract it, numb it, sedate it with opinions, noise, entertainment, and dopamine. But you're done being numb. You're here to awaken, not to become better than them, but to become whole. That's the true revolution. To build a mind that no longer betrays the soul it was meant to protect. Good. Now we arrive at the part where most break. Not because they're weak, but because the world trained them to quit anything that doesn't offer instant relief. But if you're going to build a mind so strong, it terrifies people, you need to forge it in the place most avoid. Discipline. Not the shallow discipline of routines and hacks. Not the aesthetic kind. The kind that hurts. The kind that humbles. Discipline that rewires your nervous system to choose growth over comfort. Truth over approval. Delayed mastery over instant pleasure. It is the spiritual armor of those who move with purpose. Discipline is what happens when motivation dies. When applause fades, when no one sees the silent war you're fighting, and you show up anyway. It's the contract you sign with your higher self. And every time you keep that contract, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You start seeing yourself as someone who executes. No excuses. No delays. No emotional weather reports. You just do. With or without permission. With or without praise. Because discipline isn't about control. It's about direction. You're no longer asking, how do I feel about this? You're asking, is this aligned with who I said I'd become? And that changes everything. Because when you align discipline with vision, you start moving like a force of nature. Not chasing, not wishing, creating. Vision is not a dream. It's not fantasy. It's memory from the future, whispering back to you in moments of clarity. It's the pattern your soul remembers, even if your logic doesn't. You don't wait to see it before you act. You act to see it come alive. Most people need evidence to move, but the strong mind moves first and lets the evidence catch up. You're not here to replicate what's been done. You're here to initiate what's never existed. You're not here to be another version of safe. You're here to scare people, not with arrogance, but with conviction. That look in your eyes that says, I already know how this ends. That's vision. But vision without action is delusion. The strong mind doesn't just think deeply. It moves strategically. It acts while others overthink. It builds while others wait for signs. It takes steps not when everything is ready. But when the soul is ready, you want your reality to change, then change your behavior before the world tells you it's time. You don't build castles in the sky. You build foundations in the dirt. You show up. You move forward. You sacrifice convenience for construction, because real power is practical. It's not floating in affirmations. It's embedded in action. And every action you take, aligned with your vision, becomes a thread in the tapestry of your new identity. Not the identity they gave you, but the one you're forging with blood, focus, and non-negotiable integrity. But if you want to maintain that integrity, you must conquer the one thing no one teaches you how to master: your emotions. You will never build an unshakable mind if you're a slave to your emotional weather. Feelings are feedback, not fact. Signals, not instructions. Yes, they matter. Yes, they carry wisdom, but they are not the compass. You are. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It's transmutation. It's feeling the rage and not letting it become revenge. It's feeling the fear and not letting it become paralysis. It's feeling the sadness and still moving with purpose. The strong mind allows emotion to rise, but not to reign. It sees the emotion, names it, honors it, and then asks, now, what does truth require of me? Because emotion must serve the vision, not sabotage it. And when people see that in you, when they throw chaos, and you stay centered, when they project, and you remain composed, when they push every button you used to flinch at, and you don't react, that's when they feel it. That chill, that intimidation, not because you threaten them, but because you are no longer reachable by the forces that once controlled them. You become sovereign, untouchable, a psychological fortress. Good, because now that you forge discipline, now that you've chosen vision over validation, action over anxiety, and emotional mastery over emotional slavery, you're ready to unlock something most never reach. Gratitude, not the watered-down version, not the kind scribbled in journals to feel momentarily better, not I'm grateful for my coffee and move on with your day. I'm talking about soul-deep gratitude, the kind that requires awareness, not convenience, the kind that allows you to look at your past and say, thank you. Thank you to the betrayal. Thank you to the loss. Thank you to the silence, the rejection, the abandonment, because it broke you open. It cleared space. It forced the excavation of the real you. A strong mind doesn't resent the storm. It honors it, because without the storm, there is no awakening. This is the kind of gratitude that terrifies people because it makes you immune to guilt, immune to manipulation, immune to the narrative that says you should be ashamed of your pain. No, you're not ashamed. You're thankful because your pain became power and your suffering became strategy. Gratitude is not passivity. It's presence. It's your refusal to be a victim of circumstance when you can be a master of meaning. And when you choose to walk through the world, not bitter, but blessed. Even with blood on your hands and scars on your skin, you become terrifying in the most beautiful way. Because gratitude makes you unbreakable. But even with clarity, even with emotional power, even with relentless gratitude, you still need one more thing: adaptability. Because the world will shift. The plan will fall apart. The certainty will collapse. And your strength will not be measured by how tightly you hold on, but by how gracefully you pivot. Rigidity is a symptom of fear. It's what happens when the ego needs control. But the mind that terrifies people, it flows, it adapts, it responds to life like a river carves through rock, not by force, but by presence over time. You're not attached to how it was supposed to go. You're loyal only to the truth, to now, to the moment, to your inner compass, not the map someone else drew. Because power isn't in knowing what's coming next. It's in trusting that you can handle whatever comes. And people will fear you for that, because they don't fear those who control the environment. They fear the one who controls themselves, no matter the environment. You are no longer brittle. You are fluid steel. You are rooted and yet in motion. You are a paradox the world cannot categorize. And then comes the last frontier, the place most never enter, because they stop learning. Once they start believing, they know. But not you. You understand. Learning is power, and power has no ego. You learn from failure. You learn from criticism. You learn from your enemies. You learn from the silence between your words. Because when the mind is strong, it is hungry, not for validation, but for truth. Not to be seen as wise, but to become wise. Not to impress, but to integrate. The strong mind reads between the lines. It studies people without needing to dominate them. It listens longer than it speaks. It observes longer than it judges. And while others get louder to look confident, you grow quieter, because you no longer need to announce the wisdom you embody. The student becomes the master only when they remain the student forever. You are a learner of life, of pain, of power, of patterns, of people, of yourself. And that makes you rare, and that makes you unstoppable. And yes, that makes you terrifying to those who pretend to know but never dared to become. Now listen, if you've made it this far, if you've burned the illusions, built the muscle, faced your shadows, and resurrected from your ruins, then you're ready to hear the one truth most are never told. You are no longer becoming powerful. You are power, not because of titles, not because of achievements, but because you have become the architect of your own mind. You've built it brick by brick, with every decision that cost you comfort, with every no that protected your peace, with every silent morning where you showed up when no one clapped. And now, you don't chase. You create. You don't explain. You embody. You don't seek permission. You move like the world adjusts to you. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. And people won't understand you. They're not supposed to. Because you've built a mind that lives beyond their fear, beyond their control, beyond their expectations. You are not here to be palatable. You are not here to be accessible. You are not here to be soft for the comfort of those still stuck in the versions of you they imagined. You are here to be so real, so rooted, so relentless, that when they speak your name, they whisper, because you've become the one thing they can't fake, fabricate, or forget. A mind so strong, it terrifies people. And now, you walk forward, not with pride, but with presence. Not to prove, but to be. Not to fight, but to shine. Because nothing is more dangerous than a mind at peace with itself. And now, that mind is yours. Silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of you. Beneath the chaos of notifications, opinions, demands, and expectations, there is a place that cannot be moved. It is not advertised. It cannot be bought. It cannot be borrowed. It must be built. You are not here to react. You are here to remember. Because the moment you forget who you are, the world has 1,000 ideas ready to replace you. They'll tell you to shrink, to smile, to nod, to bow, to serve the gods of popularity, comfort, and false peace. But you weren't born for that. You were born to become immovable. You were born to stand in storms without folding, to speak without flinching, to be so rooted in your own truth that no trend, no betrayal, no disapproval, no noise can break the spine of your soul. But you forgot. We all did. You traded depth for speed, substance for approval, sovereignty for comfort. And in doing so, you drifted into the noise, 1,000 voices shouting in your head that don't belong to you. So how do you find your center again? You descend, not upward, not forward, but inward. This world teaches you to run, but your power is buried where you refuse to sit still. Sit in the silence. Sit in the shame. Sit in the memory you've been avoiding since you were 7 years old. Because that's where the immovable one is waiting. The world is not just loud, it's strategically loud. Noise is a tactic. Confusion is a weapon. The more distracted you are, the more profitable you become. They sell you anxiety and call it urgency. They sell you chaos and call it innovation. They flood your feed with the illusion of purpose, so you never build your own. But you were never meant to be a consumer of noise. You were meant to be a generator of clarity. And clarity begins with remembering what is yours. Your beliefs, your thoughts, your instincts, your damn name. Most people don't realize it, but their mind has already been colonized. They think they're making choices, but they're just reacting to programming. Jung called it the unconscious. A vast, dark territory filled with all the things you were too afraid to look at, so you buried them. And now they rule you. But here's the truth no one wants to tell you. You cannot rise above the noise until you face what's beneath your silence. You must meet your shadow, because that's where the leash is. Every time you say yes to what violates you, that's the shadow. Every time you stay silent, instead of setting a boundary, that's the shadow. Every time you scroll, compare, gossip, shrink, that is not the real you. That is the version of you molded by fear and reinforced by culture. And if you don't confront it, you will obey it for the rest of your life. To become immovable, you must become intimate with your own darkness. Not indulge it, not justify it, integrate it, because what you reject, you become enslaved to. But what you integrate, you master. The strongest person in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who no longer needs to fight, because they've already won the war inside. And now they walk into rooms with the weight of someone who doesn't need to be liked, doesn't need to explain, doesn't need to perform, because they know, not believe, not hope, know. That kind of knowing terrifies people. It terrifies those still living in the approval matrix. It terrifies those who can't understand how you're not begging to be understood. But you don't owe the world your accessibility. You owe yourself your alignment. You become immovable when your values are not for sale. Let that sink in. Not your skills, not your body, not your schedule, your values. Because when your values are unclear, your boundaries are weak. And when your boundaries are weak, your life gets hijacked. You become everyone's plan B. You become the placeholder. You become the person who says yes to everything, except their own becoming. But not anymore. Not after this. You draw the line, not with drama, not with revenge, but with discipline. Discipline is the ultimate rebellion in a world addicted to distraction. When you say no, not because you're angry, but because you're clear, you take back your life. When you choose solitude over cheap company, creation over consumption, stillness over stimulation, you stop chasing and start building. You start becoming They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're distant, detached, different. Good. They're not supposed to recognize you. The old you was built for their comfort. The new you is built for your kingdom. Because when you stop living at the mercy of noise, you start designing a world of signal. And signal is rare. Signal is integrity. Signal is intention. Signal is that one voice that cuts through the fog like a sword, not because it's loud, but because it's true. To become that signal, you must kill the lie. The lie that says you have to be everything for everyone. The lie that says you'll be safe if you just stay small. The lie that says clarity is dangerous, when in fact confusion is what keeps you enslaved. You were not born to be passive. You were not born to be vague. You were born to bring order into the chaos, not conform to it. And that starts by asking the one question most people are too terrified to answer. What do I actually believe? Not what you were told to believe. Not what you inherited from your parents. Not what gets you applause. What do you believe when you strip away every external voice? Until you answer that, the noise will win. But once you do, once you truly remember your code, every lie starts to collapse. And then you rise, unapologetic, unshakable, unmoved. Not because life gets easier, but because you get louder than the noise inside your head. Not with volume, with truth. The truth will not scream. It will not demand your attention like the noise does. It will not flash like a screen or buzz like a phone. It will not beg, seduce, or bargain. It waits like a stone beneath a river. And until you go still long enough to feel it, you'll mistake volume for vision, popularity for purpose, movement for meaning. The modern world is built on the illusion that speed equals progress. But the immovable don't rush. The immovable don't chase. They draw things in, not by force, but by frequency. And the frequency is forged in solitude. Clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from subtracting. Subtract the noise, subtract the urgency, subtract the personas you wear to survive. Because clarity is not something you find, it's what's left when everything false has burned away. That's why silence is terrifying to most people. Not because it's empty, but because it's honest. When there's no one to perform for, no screen to hide behind, no agenda to push, all that remains is you. And if you've abandoned yourself long enough, you won't recognize what's staring back. But that moment, that confrontation, that's the beginning of power. Because you cannot rebuild what you refuse to see. You want to become immovable? Then sit with your life without numbing. Don't scroll it away. Don't drink it down. Don't stuff it into a productivity app and call it progress. Sit. Feel it all. The regret, the rage, the ache of unlived potential. It is not there to destroy you. It is there to redirect you. Most people never stop long enough to listen to their own life. So the pain just becomes background noise. They call it stress, call it burnout, call it life. But it's not life. It's misalignment. You weren't meant to grind yourself into dust for a dream that doesn't even belong to you. You weren't meant to water yourself down to be digestible. You were meant to become undeniable. But to do that, you must have a spine made of something stronger than public opinion. That's what the immovable know. They don't get pulled into storms. They weren't born to fight. Not every argument is worth your voice. Not every invitation deserves your energy. Not every opportunity aligns with your soul. Your discernment is your sword, and you sharpen it by knowing who you are. Belief is not positive thinking. It is not affirmation wallpaper pasted over a cracking identity. True belief is built when your actions align with your inner knowing, even when the world laughs. even when you walk alone, even when your knees shake and your voice trembles, even when the numbers don't add up and no one claps. Belief is forged in fire. It's what remains when everything external is stripped away and you still show up because your conviction is louder than your doubt, because your discipline is deeper than your fear, because your vision is bigger than their noise. And yes, the noise will come. It always does. It will show up as critics, comparison, confusion. It will scream that you're behind, that you're not enough, that you're too late. But when you're immovable, you don't meet noise with noise. You meet it with stillness. Stillness is not passivity. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is the mark of someone who doesn't need to prove anymore. It is the posture of a mind that has nothing to defend because it already knows. Stillness is where strategy is born. Stillness is where integrity sharpens. Stillness is where the real you finally has a voice. And in that stillness, you remember. You remember what matters. Not likes, not hustle, not proving your worth in places that don't deserve you. You remember that success isn't loud, it's aligned. It is not speed. It is clarity with motion. And when you move with clarity, you become unstoppable. You don't just enter rooms, you shift them. Not with noise, not with ego, but with the unshakable presence of someone who knows why they're here. So ask yourself, are you reacting or remembering? Are you performing or becoming? Are you moving in fear or standing in truth? This world does not need more noise. It needs you, the real you, the one buried beneath the filters and masks, the one who never needed to be fixed, only unleashed, the one who's not afraid to be misunderstood because they understand themselves. That's how you become immovable, not by shouting louder, but by living deeper. Purpose is not found. It is forged. Forged in rejection. Forged in waiting rooms. Forged in the silence between who you were and who you are becoming. Purpose is not a destination, it is a decision. A decision to stand for something so deeply that the world's noise no longer penetrates your bones. A decision to stop living for applause and start living for alignment. It's not a brand. It's not a slogan. It's not a 5-step strategy you downloaded last Tuesday. It's a fire, and it only stays lit if you feed it with integrity. Because purpose, real purpose, will cost you. It will cost you your comfort. It will cost you approval. It will cost you the life you built to impress people who do not even know themselves. But in return, it will give you yourself. People talk about success like it's a prize you win. But success isn't something you win, it's something you build into your identity. And that's why most people don't hold on to it. Because their outer life outgrows their inner foundation. But the immovable never worry about losing success because they are the source of it. It's not in the money. It's not in the brand. It's in the clarity of mission, repeated with discipline long after the excitement wears off. When you are connected to something greater than yourself, you don't need to fake momentum. You become momentum. And every room you enter, you bring gravity. People feel it. They don't know why they're drawn to you, but they are. Not because you said the right thing, but because you embody what they crave: self-possession, vision, peace in the middle of noise. Resilience is not toughness. Toughness breaks. Resilience bends, adapts, recalibrates, and returns sharper. Resilience doesn't mean you don't get hit. It means you don't stay down. You learn, you rise, and you return to the fight, not with ego, but with evolution. Because every hit is data. Every loss is instruction. Every betrayal is clarity. You begin to understand life isn't happening to you. It's happening for the unveiling of who you really are. And when you start framing every failure as feedback, you stop fearing it. You realize that pain has been your greatest mentor. Not the pain itself, but what it showed you, who never showed up for you, where you gave your power away. How long you've been pretending, and more importantly, how to rebuild without needing the world's permission. Adaptability is a weapon. In a rigid world of fixed identities and fragile egos, the one who adapts with strength and self-awareness becomes unpredictable, because they're not married to the version of themselves they were last year. They evolve in silence and return with precision. They don't announce. They embody. Adaptability is not weakness, it's wisdom. The oak tree breaks in the hurricane, but the reed bends and survives. You are not here to be a statue. You are here to be a force fluid, aware, conscious. Because if you can't shift when life shifts, you become irrelevant in your own evolution. And you weren't born for irrelevance. You were born to adjust without apology and expand without explanation. But adaptability alone is not enough. At some point, you must move. No more overthinking. No more rehearsing your potential. No more waiting for the perfect moment to finally feel ready. The world doesn't need more thinkers. It needs movers, doers, builders of the unseen, protectors of what matters, silent warriors who act while others talk. The immovable do not wait for clarity. They create it through action. Because clarity is not given, it is earned in motion. So take the step. Say the thing you've been afraid to say. End what needs to end. Begin what you've been postponing. Not when it's easy. Not when they cheer. Now in the silence. Now in the resistance. Now because your soul already said yes. And your fear is late to the party. You want to be immovable? Then move. Move toward the thing that scares you and watch who you become on the way. You won't always be motivated. That's why you need discipline. Discipline is the love language of the future you. It's not about grinding harder. It's about aligning deeper. It's about doing what must be done even when the mood is gone. Because your destiny isn't built in dopamine hits. It's built in repetition. You show up. You do the work. You master the mundane. Because while the world is chasing hacks, you are becoming a weapon. A mind sharpened by truth. A body trained by discipline. A soul refined in silence. They won't see you coming, but they'll feel you when you arrive. Because consistency is louder than hype. And you are no longer hype. You are a movement in human form. Gratitude is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is not soft-spoken surrender in the face of hardship. Gratitude, true, embodied gratitude, is the highest form of awareness. It says, I see the lesson, I see the gain buried in the pain, I see the strength born of the struggle, I see the signal through the noise. Gratitude is rebellion in a culture that feeds on dissatisfaction. It is clarity in the middle of a storm. It is stillness while the world spins. It is looking at what you do have and saying, this is my beginning, not my boundary. Because the one who can give thanks in the dark will command the light. Vision. This is where the immovable begin to separate from the rest. Because most people are chasing goals, but you are building a vision. There's a difference. Goals are checkboxes. Visions are blueprints for legacy. And a blueprint needs clarity, yes. But it also needs courage. The courage to think bigger than your surroundings. To act before there's evidence. To walk alone. Because your destination is too rare to be crowded. Vision is not something you wait for. It's something you claim. And once you claim it, it begins to sculpt you. It cuts off distractions. It demands alignment. It disciplines your schedule. It sharpens your focus. Vision makes your life smaller, not in impact, but in interference. You stop being available to everything that doesn't serve where you're going. And in doing so, you become magnetic. Because while the world is screaming for attention, you are moving with intention. You no longer need to convince. You embody what people can't explain. And that is the mark of someone who is already living from the future they've seen. Identity is the foundation of all of this. You will never rise above the opinion you have of yourself. You can chase every dream, write every affirmation, wear the mask perfectly, but if your identity is rooted in fear, lack, or shame, it will sabotage every opportunity you touch. That's why Jung didn't say fix yourself. He said integrate yourself. Bring home the parts you've abandoned, the inner child that still waits for permission, the shadow self you demonize to survive, the genius you buried to fit in. You are not one self, you are many. And when they all come home, not to war, but to alignment, that's when you become indestructible. Not perfect, not finished, but whole. And wholeness is what the world cannot take from you. They can take the job, they can take the platform, they can take the applause, but they can't touch what you have become. Because you didn't build yourself on sand. You built yourself on truth. And here we are, decrescendo, the final breath before you walk back into the noise with a fire they cannot name. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to be liked. You don't need to be understood. You just need to remember who you are when everything else goes quiet. That version of you, the one who doesn't need validation to act, that version of you, the one who hears the chaos and chooses peace. That version of you, the one who stops performing and starts embodying, that's who you are now. You don't chase alignment. You become it. You don't chase power. You remember it. You don't beg for change. You are the change that breaks the cycle. So go. Go with your silence. Go with your fire. Go with your clarity. Go with your shadow not in shame, but in sovereignty. And when they ask you how you became so calm in the chaos, so still in the storm, so unshakable in a world that screams, you won't need to say a word, because your presence will answer for you. You are immovable now, and nothing will ever move you again.